So you've been playing fantasy football for a while with your coworkers or friends, and you absolutely love it. You invest so much time into researching players in the summer. You crush your draft, you destroy your league mates every year. But then you heard of this thing called Dynasty, and it piqued your interest because deep down you know you want more fantasy football. So you try to figure out what Dynasty fantasy football is, and you found this video. So in this video, I'm going to break down what Dynasty is and give you 5 tips and tricks to help you succeed in Dynasty. And I try to make these tips for everyone. So even if you have been playing Dynasty for a year, 3 years, 10 years, hopefully you get something out of this video as well. But if you are new here, I invite you to hit that subscribe button because this channel is nonstop Dynasty all year long. So first things first, what is Dynasty? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Dynasty Fantasy Football is a league where you retain most, if not all, of your players from year to year. This creates an environment which is very different from a redraft league because you don't draft a new team every year. Instead, you just keep it like the NFL or franchise mode in Madden. And the drafts that we hold every year are rookie drafts, which are made up only of the incoming rookies for that season. So for example, in 2021, we were drafting players like Jamar Chase, Najee Harris, and Trevor Lawrence in our rookie drafts, which help kind of refuel your team with youth and potentially star power every year, just like the NFL. The goal of Dynasty is the same as redraft, to win a fantasy championship at the end of the year. But the true allure is to be able to not only win one championship,
not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7,
but multiple over a short period of time or even in a row and build a dynasty, thus the name Dynasty Fantasy Football. One clarification I will make is that dynasty leagues are not the same as keeper leagues. I mean, I guess by definition, a dynasty league is a keeper league, but a keeper league is not a dynasty league, if that makes sense.
Nope.
In keeper leagues, generally, you can only retain one or a couple players from year to year, but then you primarily have to draft a brand new team every single year. That is not a dynasty league, and so the player values in each format are still pretty different. So now that you know what a dynasty league is, let's get into the 5 tips and tricks. The first tip I have is understanding player values, which honestly is probably about 90% of your job playing dynasty is going to be deciphering player values in many different aspects of the game. There's understanding player values across positions. There's understanding values across age gaps, understanding rookie pick values compared to veterans. Just so much of Dynasty and your success in Dynasty will be determined by your ability to accurately determine player values. Now, there are a lot of different ways to go about this, and there are a lot of different resources to help you out with this. Number one, you need to find a website or a group of websites that deliver this type of information. But shameless plug, this is a huge part of what we do here at Dynasty League Football, both on this YouTube channel and also on our website with written content. So please subscribe if you're here for all things Dynasty. But it doesn't have to be DLF. It can be whoever you connect with or find their information to be accurate and actionable, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of websites, YouTube channels, social media groups, podcasts. All of that is out there for you to find and consume. You just need to make sure that you are consuming it. Second, you need to find an ADP or rankings resource that you trust. Again, here at DLF, we pride ourselves on delivering the best of best in both of those arenas, especially ADP, which I reference all the freaking time on this channel in almost every single video. ADP and rankings serve as a consensus snapshot of current player values that can help guide you through a startup draft or making trades. Bonus tip though, try to do your own dynasty rankings, as actually going through the process will help show you how you actually feel about players compared to others. I mean, maybe you think that DJ Moore is a top 10 dynasty wide receiver until you actually start listing out names ahead of him. You might actually prove yourself wrong. So going through that process is going to be greatly beneficial to you in doing it yourself. Third, do some mock drafts, either by yourself or with a group of people. There are a handful of places where you can do this, like Fantasy Pros, Sleeper. We're working on one too. Mock drafting can be so helpful before your startup draft, just to get a feel for where players are going, to help you plan out your strategy and even make trades to move around the draft board to target hot spots and fade weak ones that your league mates may not know about because they did not do the research. Finally, I invite you to find a trade calculator that you trust. And people look down on trade calculators, but I think that's because there's some people that misuse their information. Personally, I love the DLF Trade Analyzer and I use it basically every single day. They're another resource, another guide for evaluating player values, but don't treat them as gospel and only accept or reject trades based on what a trade calculator says. That's not the point of them. The point of them is to be able to use them to help craft out initial trade offers, or even just double check yourself before hitting accept to make sure that you're not getting fleeced on a deal. It's a resource, so you should be able to use it. Moving on to the next tip, which is similar to the first, is understanding value cycles at each position. Basically, each position has a value arc, just like a career arc, where it starts low-ish at the beginning of their careers, peaks in the middle, and then drops as they age out of the NFL. The value cycle is not the same at each position, though, since longevity, for example, is different if you're a running back versus a tight end or even a quarterback. So understanding those positional value cycles is key in Dynasty and a big premise of buying low and selling high. You will also hear the phrase, it's better to sell a year early than a year too late, which is also in response to value cycles. You want to be the person to sell Todd Gurley before he falls off of a cliff and his value tanks into basically nothingness. The third tip is know your league settings, and this goes not only for scoring, but also for lineup requirements. For example, a very basic Dynasty league is pretty much the same settings as your typical redraft league, with the same scoring and starting requirements minus defenses and kickers, hopefully. So you might only be starting 7 or 8 players in your starting lineup. Player values in that league, which puts more emphasis on studs because you're starting fewer, are very different than player values in a league where you are starting double-digit players, where depth is more important in those kind of leagues. Likewise, if you only need to start 1 running back versus 3 wide receivers, or it's 1 quarterback versus a super flex league, or maybe you just wanted to have fun and your entire starting lineup are all just flex positions, all of this matters for player values. Additionally, scoring is very important to understand because different players or positions can be good or bad in different scoring settings. So like if you are in a league that scores point for first downs, then that skews a little bit towards running backs more so than wide receivers. Or maybe your quarterback scoring is like super weird and very different, and it's important to have good quarterbacks. Also, the term tight end premium is extremely loose in regards to a standard PPR value for tight ends, because you could be in a tight end premium league if tight ends get 1.25 points per reception, or you could also be in a tight end premium league if they go all the way up to 2 points per reception. That difference drastically affects how tight ends score and should be valued. So understanding your league settings is very, very important. Tip number 4 is know the strength of future rookie classes. Most Dynasty leagues will allow you to trade rookie picks a year or 2 in advance. So as of right now in 2022, you can probably trade away 2023 and even 2024 picks in their rookie drafts. However, you may or may not want to actually trade those depending on how strong those classes are actually viewed. You might know this already, but there was a huge difference in strength between the 2017 and 2018 classes. 2017 gave us Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, and even James Conner was the 3rd round rookie pick. 2018, however, not so great, with players like Darius Geis, Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny, Royce Freeman, Kerryon Johnson, James Washington, Anthony Miller, Dante Pettis. All of these guys were going in the top 16 overall in rookie drafts. Similarly, we also know how amazing the 2020 class has been already, with Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Lamb, Swift, Dobbins, Akers, Burrow, Herbert. I mean, I could go on for a while with the 2020 class. 2023 looks to be like another 2017 or 2020, and even 2024 looks very strong with potentially multiple 1st round rookie running backs like Trevion Henderson and Braylon Allen. The wide receivers also look good. We have a couple quarterbacks who are probably going to be better than anybody in this 2022 class. And we even have an elite tight end who could enter the league as a top 5 Dynasty tight end. Now, I'm not saying you need to know every single player in future classes, but it's very easy to see how future classes are viewed by listening to a couple Devy analysts or anyone who really follows college football closely. The 5th and final tip I have for you is very important in the offseason, and that is you don't need to set lineups in the offseason. That might feel like a given, but it's true. You don't need to set lineups. And what I mean by this is don't worry about how your starting lineup looks in February, in March, and April, because that might prevent you from making a good trade or draft very poorly in your startup draft if you're thinking about your starting lineup. The point of the offseason is improving your roster for the next NFL season by shipping off players who are declining in value and acquiring those who are gaining value. You should not care that moving Nick Chubb for Jalen Waddle means you don't have an RB1 and now you have too many wide receivers, so you decline that trade. What you should view that as is that you gained value to your roster, which in the offseason, value is the only thing that matters, not points, because no one's scoring points. It's all about the value. And I know tons of Dynasty players who trade away all of their running backs in February and March, and it doesn't matter because we're not setting lineups. You acquire as much value as you can now, so that then right before the season, you start making moves to acquire pieces back to score points when you actually need to score points. It might be the same players you traded away 6 months prior, but as long as the value is there, it doesn't matter, and now you're set for the fantasy season. Okay, one bonus tip, which I have had to learn the hard way, was avoid Dynasty fever. And Dynasty can be a very addictive drug, and once new players start to get a taste, they get hooked, they start joining too many leagues, and especially during this time of year, where nothing is really going on, you're bored, you want to draft, so you join a new league, and then you join another league, and then you join another league, and it just starts to snowball down a little bit out of control. And while that's all fun and games now, it isn't when you have to manage all of those leagues during the season. 15 drafts might be fun to do in the offseason, but that also means that you have 15 waiver wires you have to do every Tuesday. You have 15 different groups of league mates wanting to trade with you. You have 15 lineups you need to manually set every Sunday morning. You have 15 matchups with different players that you have to root for, and it's all just too much. And then the worst part happens is you realize you are in too many leagues, so you have to leave a few after a year or two, making those leagues have to find your replacement, but you're still addicted, so you join another league or two to draft some more, and it's just a vicious, never-ending cycle that only stops when you learn the word no. Now, some people can handle a lot of leagues. Some people play in 100 Dynasty leagues, and they treat players like stocks, and their leagues are their portfolios, and they're like day trading these players for thousands of dollars every single year. That's not me, and I don't think that's a lot of you out there. I only play in 3 Dynasty leagues, 3. And if you want some advice that has helped me tremendously in staying at those 3 leagues, when you get that itch to draft, because honestly, drafting is the best, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why you join more Dynasty leagues. So when you get that itch to draft, don't go and join another Dynasty league. Instead, I join a $1 best ball draft on Underdog, and I spend an hour drafting, and that makes the itch go away. So know your limit and don't get Dynasty fever. So now that you know what a Dynasty league is and you have some tips in the back of your pocket that you can take into your Dynasty startup draft, you might want to actually create a Dynasty league yourself, in which case I've created a video for you guys where you can see some really cool settings that you might want to implement. And then there are also other platforms that you might need to use to play in Dynasty leagues that are not your typical ESPN or Yahoo or other redraft leagues. And every platform has its own pros and cons. So I also made another video breaking down every single platform that allows Dynasty. So you can find those 2 videos right here. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.